Mr. Aric, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me, Rick.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. One of the most interesting things about living in Nosara, and I say this a lot, is we really don't know who you live by. So I've known you for a long time, and it turns out you're a children's author, and I'm really excited to explore that today.
Well, thank you. I'm glad. You're absolutely right. I didn't know very much about you either. I only knew you from real estate
Oh, you just like shot an arrow into my heart.
I feel you. That I knew that was going to hurt. But the whole point being is that's what a lot of people knew you as.
Yeah.
And what I come to realize is you are far, far more than that, my friend. Far more than that.
I appreciate you saying that last part.
Okay.
That's a big part of the podcast is also I've realized people really have no idea who I am. And people come up and talk all the time. They think I want to talk about my day job, and I don't. I want to talk about a lot of other stuff.
You know, when I'm not working, I don't want to talk about what I have to do for work either. I think a lot of people can relate to that too. But yeah, you've told me that you want to try to set this aside for some other time. But yeah, what you're doing here is phenomenal by really opening up the true social network of a community and getting people to know each other. I honestly had no idea what I was walking into, and I'm very excited to be here.
Right on. So maybe before we get into what you're up to now, can you fill us in on your background? Like, where are you from and how did you get to Nosara?
I was born and raised in Cocoa Beach, Florida. I lived my whole life there. Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral, you've probably heard of NASA. If you don't know where it is, it's on the east coast of Florida. It's the closest beach to Orlando or Disney World. So that's where I grew up.
Pretty cool place. I'm from Florida too. And it was always special if we could roll down to Cocoa Beach or Melbourne area.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful beach, and it has many. I mean, the physical beach itself has many similarities to Guiones. And when I go surfing in Guiones,
just without the waves.
Right, exactly. When I'm in Guiones, I always think this is like home, but just perfect waves every day, consistently. Yeah, but you know, that's why we have Kelly. That's why, I mean, Kelly Slater came from Cocoa Beach. And why he got so good, and he said it many times, is because he grew up surfing horrible waves and learning how to make something out of horrible waves.
Yeah, the Hopgoods. Florida has a very long tradition of amazing surfers because they're hungry.
Exactly. It's a place where you have to really struggle and fight for your waves in more ways than one. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know what you're saying. I try to explain that to people here frequently. It's a question I ask a lot of folks is why is the lineup so chilled here?
Yeah.
And why is it so relaxed? Because in Florida, if there's a day with waves, you see fights, everyone's arguing. It's because they're starving, and it's and it's not very abundant. And here the waves just keep coming every day.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We live in a paradise. We live in an absolute paradise.
So tell me about how'd you find Nosara? What brought you here?
Right. I didn't mean to get off the subject. I grew up in Central Florida. I went through, college and community college. And I grew up in Cocoa Beach, born and raised in Cocoa Beach, went to community college in Cocoa at BCC. It's called Eastern Florida University now. And then I went to Stetson University. I graduated from Stetson with a degree in philosophy.
Nice.
And
it's a pretty good school.
Yeah.
Thought about playing baseball there, actually.
There you go. You could have been a Hatter. We could have been comrades and alumni. But I went to Stetson. I moved back to Cocoa Beach after school and went into business with my father. I have a real estate license in Florida and a general contractor's license in Florida as well. They're currently active still. I actually made a decision at the end of this expiration date. I'm going to let them go voluntarily inactive just because all of my passions are
good for you.
What I'm doing now and and my life and business and family here. I don't have a whole lot of interest in revisiting my going back to the US. But I was interestingly enough, I was engaged to a woman, and we were living in Central Florida. She was from Central Florida as well, on the beach there in Cocoa Beach, and my mother contracted colon cancer.
Oh gosh.
She was with my sister, and they were looking at my sister's flowers for a wedding, and she fell down and scrunched over in pain, was taken to an emergency surgery. They found a tumor. It was advanced tumor. It ended up being stage 4 cancer. They cut out about 80% of it is what they were able to get on the initial surgery, and they gave her 3 months. But she refused chemo and radiation, she did Gerson therapy, which involves organic vegetable juices, and coffee enemas to flush the body. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty long process. She's been completely cancer-free for many years now.
Wow.
Yeah, she's my mother. I'm not going to give her away her age. It'd probably upset her if she ever heard the show. But
by the way, she's still with you.
Yeah, I know. She's strong. She walks, plays tennis, and swims, and is full of life. She actually, as I get into what I'm here to talk about with you later on, my publishing company, I do publish books. One of them is her book, called From God to Us, which is also on Amazon. Yet her story is what brought me here, because it was in that experience, excuse me, it was in that experience, the learning of the Gerson therapy, that I came to understand, like, the reality that how contaminated conventional food is, particularly back in the United States. One primary thing that drove me here to come to Nosara was not only the family orientation of the community, but the intense focus on organics. From here going up to San Juanillo, it's such a strong organic network and focus on organics. And with the Gerson therapy, the woman I was with at the time and I were just so, and my whole family were so, and we are to this day, so focused around organics and eating organic food and being aware of toxicities from the environment and whatnot. And it was that experience that kind of pushed the woman that I was with and I to sell all of our things. I believe your office was involved. I hate to bring up the subject of your thing, but, or no, it was Cheeky. That was it. Cheeky did it. Cheeky is who we found it with, and we found Casa Camilla. Cheeky's a character. He's a great guy. We found Casa Camilla, and we had sold all our stuff. I came here. I lived at Rancho Tico for like 7 days while we were in between, like, having sold all our stuff, come here and waiting for closing. We closed, and I moved into there with my ex, and I just worked really hard. We rebuilt the whole place. We lived upstairs, rented out the downstairs, and like so many other couples you've heard about, after a year, we broke up. In the aftermath, my father came down, we were in family business and real estate back home. And he came down. I ended up meeting up with Mario at Passport 2. During my breakup, I was kind of like staying at Passport 2, and he was there, and we would get talking and everything. And what ended up happening is, an opportunity came up for both of us, and I got my father involved, and suddenly I was now responsible for this whole place that was being renovated, and that's when Passport 2 turned into Sunset Pilates.
Gotcha.
Was I just when I drew that up and changed that and renovated that, and then we moved down a little bit further. He went on. My father loves the place. My whole family loves Nosara. It's a paradise, and in the course of doing that, I met my wife. I met Andrea, and I fell in love, and we now have a little boy. He's to be 16 months old in a week.
Many congratulations.
Thank you, and it's amazing. So I just got my permanent residency. Came in like on the
congratulations 22nd. On that too.
So I guess I'm officially a true Tico gringo, or gringo Tico, and my son's a Tico gringo. I guess that's how that lays out. So I'm here now, and I'm not going anyplace. I've been here for 8 or 9 years, and I have a my whole soul is here. My soul, my heart, and an incredibly consistent, very forgiving, and very mellow lineup of a wave is here as well. So these are just a few of my favorite things, you know?
Seems like a pretty good spot for a Florida boy to end up at.
It's perfect. It's
cool, man.
It's beautiful.
So you are a children's author. You've actually have a couple books recently that came out, right?
Well, not that recent. Well, I do have a couple. One was my mother's that recently came out. The other one is the second of my series, just recently came out. I also published the books. I own the company Youthwide LLC. I founded that. I actually did all of this from my place here in Nosara, from my little home office.
So tell us about it.
Well, the way it works is it's that through Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. I put together these books, and they're books I wrote 25 years ago. They're stories. There's 4 initial stories that I wrote over 25 years ago when I was back in community college. And I had always been writing since I was a little boy. And what had happened is I had been developing this kind of rap-like rhyme style. It was really more of a rap than anything. But the raps and the rhymes weren't necessarily for children. And I went into a course at the community college on an early admissions program that was a public speaking course that you had to, she would give you things to write, and then you had to come share them to the class. And a little boy from the neighborhood had asked me to write him a story, and it was really interesting the way he did it. He was like, Mr., write me a story. And I said, well, what do you want to hear a story about? And he said, I want to hear a story about a lion, or I want to hear a story about a princess, a king, a queen, a moat, a man with a big sword. And I said, and a monster? And he said, well, where would the monster be? And I said, right on the other side of the moat. And he looked up and he pointed and he stared a little bit. And then he looked back at me and he goes, yeah, tell me about the monster in the rhinoceros horn, about how the pointy end got stuck in the tree with the bird. Tell me, I'm ready. And he sits down and he crosses his leg and he looks at me. And from that experience, I wrote the first of the stories for my other class.
That's
and it was
cool.
Like a fable.
What's the name of that one?
The name of that one is called A Tree in the Desert.
Okay.
And it's planned to be the 4th story, the 4th book of the Mr. Kind Stories book series. The first one was the story of BLUFF, which has it was our first try. There's some things wrong with, the manuscript, some technical things a little wrong with the manuscript. We did really good. The artwork is phenomenal. Zach, who Zach Pollitt.
We got Zach representing all up in this place right now.
Yeah, no, Zach is a phenomenal artist and has like an incredible. He has the tools, and he's armed with the tools and the ability to present his creation in like a very technical, in a digital way, in a very potent way. And he has an incredible, unique creativity to him. And he has a passion for what he does, which makes it, that passion is not something you can buy. It's not something you can create. It's something that's there or it's not.
So you got your partner for the visual side of things, and Zach.
Yeah, exactly. He's done it, and I don't have any plans of necessarily looking for another artist at this point, at any point, because he hears a story and then he visualizes. I like to call him a visualizer, not an illustrator, and because not only the images in the book, but he's helped put together the image of Mr. Kind. It was his idea. I would always been telling stories, and he early on, and I had kind of an idea from when I was young, and I had done some commercial stuff, and I had, that like the idea of the hat, the pullover, like the 1920s newsy look, but he did his thing and made it nice. But let me get back to what we were talking about. So what I've done is that the first story is called The Story of BLUFF, and it was the first book, and it's out on Amazon right now as well. And that has a moral to it. But my newest book is called King of the Moon. And it is a wonderful story about a very awkward fellow named Clyde who has an apple tree who's his best friend, but he can't share his ham sandwich for lunch that he brought to share with his friend Sam because, well, Sam's an apple tree and apple trees don't eat ham sandwiches. So Clyde goes upon a series of events, magical events that takes him up a magical staircase to the moon where he meets a series of characters and he, in the end, hopefully finds something to share.
Right on. So that's
friend.
book 2.
That's book 2. That's King of the Moon.
Okay, gotcha.
And what I'm trying to do to make this very unique is the stories, they're not just books. They're not just books with pictures, even though those two things in and of themselves are amazing. It's a multimedia experience to the extent that I record the telling of the stories. I have Patrick Cook then write original score and sound effects track to the stories. The audiobook becomes available as well on Amazon. And I'm able to give the stories, present the stories with my original voices to the soundtrack. And I sync it all. And I've done it at Casa de Estrellas. And I did it at Del Mar. And I hope to do it at other schools, as we build. But I'm really looking forward to it. Patrick's working on it right now. I recorded the voices, but King of the Moon is going to be fun.
Cool, man. Well, hey, congratulations on getting this far. Sounds like,
thank you.
Sounds like you're moving into your authentic self.
That's what I'm trying to do. We go through the practicalities of life. We want to be healthy, productive citizens to society. We want to take care of ourselves and our family, be healthy. And those are the things that keep yourself in peace. But it's like your passions, your imagination, the chances you take to do something you love is what keeps the fire going, keeps the engines running. That's what I see. And that's the point I wanted to make to you earlier is that as you explain to me what you're doing here, that's what I see you doing here. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Much respect. Thanks for the acknowledgement. And then I guess one of my first questions based off what you told me so far is what started this? I know you're creative content director, inspiration from the little boy, but what started it? Like, when was the first time when you were like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to pursue this. Like, when did it very, very begin?
It's the stories were written, like I said, and I was right from the get-go had to present them to this class of people. And then as I grew from very early on, even before, like at the very end of the years, I put an ad in the paper called The Storyteller. My father did some artwork. I had business cards made. So I performed since I was very young, 17, 18 years old, I performed at public and private schools. I performed at birthday parties, things like that, music festivals, creative workshops, things of that nature. But nothing ever really took off. And because I was young, I didn't really know what I was doing as far as business and professionalism was concerned. I was just telling stories, having fun. I would get paid on any certain event, and I would blow most of the money. I mean, I was just a kid, and coming out of high school, going into college, and what ended up happening is that I went into college and into my professional life, and it wasn't until after I had gone through college and done my professional life and everything. And I wrote a lot. I mean, I have a degree in philosophy. Obviously, I wrote a lot. And so I had a creative outing, but I wasn't using the stories. I wasn't really producing the stories the way I wanted to produce them. And what happened is that I got out of the business life and I got established, I went into the business life and I got established in business. I have a family and a wife now, and I'm established, and now is the time that I want to go back and rebrand, repurpose, revisit what I had started as a child. And I want to do it in a way that I can get this out to children so that they enjoy it, with my long-term goal of turning Mr. Kind stories, the commercial aspect of it, into MrKindKids.org, into a nonprofit, like global community-based thing where I have children writing in with social issues that I can then write stories customized to help them through. I have a friend who's an author, Douglas Kurtz, he lives in Colorado, and he had, at the time, this was, I don't know, probably like 4 years ago, his son was 6 years old, and I went and visited him in Colorado. Before I visited him, he said to me, after hearing the story of BLUFF, he said to me, "Man, that's great. I wish you could write something to help my son." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he told me this story about how his little boy had been blamed by another child after they were playing and something was broken, and he was blamed for it and ostracized for it. No, ostracized, but like disciplined for it for 2 or 3 days without defending himself before the other boy fessed up to the situation. Okay? And after that event, this little boy, Max, he would, whenever, even on television or in person, or someone began plotting to do something wrong or something, he would like yell and run out of the room, things like that, like a very expletive discharge or outrage at what was going on. And so I went to Colorado. I spoke at, Doug's wife is a professor at the University of Colorado. I spoke in her creative writing class. I told a story, and I sat with the boy. The first morning I was there I sat with him and spent the first hour of his morning, had breakfast with him. Hadn't ever met him in person, and just met with him so I could know the child before he went to school. And while he was at school, I wrote a story called Mindful Max and Mouthy Mason that relived in kind of in a rhyme similar to Casey at Bat. I relived this event between this fictitious character and this other fictitious character, one of them named Max, the same name as the boy, who they're playing and something gets broken and Max gets blamed, and then the other boy comes back and says it's okay. And in the end, Max, the main character, comes to realize through the story that maybe why the little boy was doing that was because his father had always punished him for losing. I gave a real world reason for this little 6-year-old boy to empathize with his peer. And I told him the story when he got home from school that day. And I looked at him and I said, "Do you see Max? Do you see?" After the story was done, he looked at me and I looked at him and I said, "Do you see Max? Do you see now maybe why that other boy did that?" And he looked back at me and he said, Yeah, I think I get it. Hey Mom, can I watch Puppy Pals or whatever? You know what I mean? It was that quick. And so when that happened, and I looked over at his parents who were standing in the kitchen, and they had, this kind of surprise on their face, and she went away with the boy, and I talked with the father, and, we finished our trip and had a great time. And they have a home here in Pilata that they're here part of the year up on the hill. Doug and Kat, she likes to be called Kat. Doug and Kat Kurtz, and great people. And
they have the old Casa Sonrisa.
Right, the one up there up on the hill.
They're really nice. They're really nice people. I was able to help them and get to know them. Yeah,
no, they're great people. They're both writers. She's a professor as well. And they have a great son. They're good friends. I think they're in Panama, or they're just getting back from Panama. But if you see them around, you should say hi. They're really, really nice people. But that story, Mindful Max and Mouthy Mason, is what I plan, like, after these first 4 kind of commercial, universal stories come out. That will be the one and that will be dedicated to Max, of course. But that one will be, the first one was my nephew. The second one is my son, because my son wasn't born when I wrote the first one. The next will be my other nephew, who was born next after my son. But, as far as dedication. But that story, the Mindful Maximality Mason, which I'm hoping to come out with in Christmas, holiday seasons of 2021, is the one that I really, that's the vision, is to, in 5 years, be producing these books with a purpose at helping children through social issues. That's an end goal of Mr. Khan's stories. Right now, it's just about opening people's imagination without having to look at a screen.
Well, I wish you a great deal of luck in your journey. That's really cool. I
appreciate it.
That's really cool. So can you accomplish all this while living here in Nosara?
I believe so, yeah. That's a beautiful thing about the technology that we have in today's day and age. And in the world is whatever your feelings in regards to like Amazon and Jeff Bezos is and the climate catastrophe and how mass, consumerism is affecting that. I respect all of those. In and of my personal journey, I have to say that the creation of Kindle Direct Publishing, the ability to circumvent, I've been in entertainment a long time, and I've spent many hours and money submitting and processing rejection after rejection after rejection. So when a vehicle is out there like KDP that is going to allow me to put out and publish to a mass audience a product that I determine what its quality level is, that just like what you're doing here, it's a huge opportunity. We've said this, yeah. What you're doing here by letting me be on this show is a tremendous gift, and I thoroughly appreciate it. And I think people need to recognize that, what media platforms are, particularly, more true to life, genuine interview, news-oriented media platforms is connecting us all to reality. And what KDP has allowed me to do is use that multidimensional platform to get out something that I produce, and everything can be done. I mean, this is part of what I want to try to do with Del Mar at some point. We've talked about it, is, have a class explaining how, if you are a creator and you are creative and you are focused on it, you can do these things without having to go the classical route of finding an agent, going through multiple rejections, changing your art to fit somebody else's desires, things of that nature, that you can be genuine, you can put yourself out there, and it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I guess I'm getting off a little bit. You asked me, but I mean, I answered your question about how it all came about.
Yeah, what I heard you say, my question was, can you accomplish this stuff from here in Nosara?
Yeah, and all with the technology.
What I heard you say was, yeah, thanks to technology, not only can you do that, you now actually have the power to do what you want to do, as opposed to having it to do it through the old school methods, which is waiting for someone else to accept your work and then they doctor it and change it. What you're saying is, yeah, I can do it from right here, and the power's mine.
It's true.
Was that the short version?
That is the absolute short version of that little bit.
I never said our production value was super high here.
That's okay. That's totally cool. You don't just put anything out there. I have a history in entertainment. I've seen a lot of what's been put out there, and to the extent that I know what a quality production is, and in the avenue and in the venue that I'm trying to put out my work to benefit children primarily. What I'm trying to produce is a quality product, is something that children can get lost in their imagination with, stories that you want to relive. And, I have to admit that I get a huge amount of satisfaction from writing the stories, personal creative satisfaction. And when I tell the stories, which I'm kind of borrowing a lot of my answers from an interview that I just gave Sherry Hoyt. So I apologize if I'm just paraphrasing some stuff. But, yeah, when I'm able to tell a story to a group of children that are just unlike adults, because I've done both adults and kids, unlike adults, children are just so pure. So like, it's such a genuine sense of absolute surrender to their imaginations that it's like, you get that as a performer. You get that as a storyteller. And anybody who writes or tells stories, and it's not just telling stories or performing on stage, anybody who writes, I mean, you have to be aware of that what you're sharing, you're trying to create an objective representation of your subjective self. You know, when you write. So you're sharing that part of you. And in turn, anybody who consumes that, they're opening up their heart, their passion, their soul to you in that same moment. Sometimes it goes good, sometimes not so good. But it's a very raw, unique, it's an interplay that you have to appreciate, you have to embrace, or otherwise you go crazy as a creative.
So let's talk about Nosara in particular. Okay. I want to know quickly what your likes are.
In Nosara?
Yeah, what do you like about this place?
Well, obviously, first and foremost, I have to say the beach. It's tremendous. But I mean, I don't want to sound like a regurgitated answer, but
that's why I said quickly, because we already know the likes.
Okay, then like, I mean, I guess the thing that is most uniquely profound in my desire to be here in this community is this sense of a community, like a desire for community well-being, okay, that is shared, as opposed to, and I think in a lot of other communities in this country and anywhere else in the world, it's much more isolated and much more each business, let's say, is trying to do their thing regardless of how it affects anybody else. Here, yeah, we all have our, everybody's going to clash. Everybody, politics is never going to be truly bipartisan across the board, ever. That's the nature of what it is. It's our uniquenesses falling into each other. But I think when it all comes down to it, it's just like, you very rarely just find a bunch of trash on the side of the road around here type thing. It's like people care, you don't see like, I just get the feeling that people care about what's going on and about their neighbor to a greater extent in this community. I feel safer raising a child in this community. I feel less aggression in general in this community. Than I do definitely more than the United States, the majority of the United States. But even within Costa Rica, I don't want to badmouth any other location by any means, and I don't want to target any other location, so I'm not going to throw out any names. But I am going to say that Nosara, in my opinion, holds a uniqueness of safety, family focus, and general, communal sense of community care and well-being greater than anything I've really experienced in any other community.
Right on. All right. Same question, except for this time, what are your biggest dislikes?
My biggest dislikes about, I guess, I don't know if I should talk about the road or if that's really like a lame fallback.
This might come as a surprise to you.
But it's coming along. I'm just kidding, because it is coming along beautifully. The asphalt is working, isn't it?
The sealant's a good thing, man.
Yes, it is. It's great not having to breathe the dust as much.
Yeah, I hope they get it all down, and I hope that it gets completed. But back to your dislikes.
Sorry. No, yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole lot I don't like about it. I mean, there's like...
The road's a good dislike.
Right. I mean, but
the joke that you didn't let me tell there, I was about to say, believe it or not, somebody else has sat there and said that once or twice.
It's so true, though, I'm sure. No, every time there's some type of, public debate about something in regards to our infrastructure, it's always the road. And, having some rental properties, you always hear about it. How's the road doing? How's the road doing? How's the road doing?
That's a good one, though. That's a good dislike.
I mean, there's not a whole lot that I don't like about this community. I mean,
nice.
It's expensive in relation to other communities. Okay, granted.
I'm asking for positives. I'm asking for your dislikes.
Right. I mean, it is expensive.
So the roads and it's expensive. Those are good dislikes.
It's an expensive living cost. It's a very expensive cost of living here, but there's very little I don't like about this community. I mean, it's just...
Well, those are big enough, man.
Okay, cool.
Like, so the roads is expensive.
I mean, we can start trying to get real depressing here, but I was trying to keep the show upbeat.
No, people are bored of the standard likes.
Right.
So for me, like, nothing's worse than have to sit here, listen... All right. I'll go on and on. We already know the likes. What we want to know is the dislikes.
Right.
Because that's what people who are listening to this, or if somebody made it this far into the podcast, people really appreciate the authenticity from people who live here, who have businesses here, who are raising families here, who are writing books from here. Yeah. People want to know the non-commercialized version of things.
Exactly.
So that's why I ask this question every podcast. It's because, like I said, everyone goes on and on about all the good. We know that. That's the commercial version. That's like the Instagram version. What I'm trying to do is give people some insight into what is it really like to be here.
No, well, I mean, and it's good. You're steering me in the right direction here. Yeah, no, I completely understand. Things that I don't like about this is, okay, the infrastructure, obviously, we need to work on. It needs to get worked on. We're in a rural community. That's fine. I understand. As far as like the community is concerned, I would like to see some more. So I'm not a big vocal person on Facebook, rant and rave and things. I'm not like a big vocal person. I'm not, it's hard for me to point and press blame on anybody because I do have a small child. I have a couple businesses. I'm very, busy and I love to surf as much as I can. So I'm not a very actively civic person. I will admit to that. But what I do occasionally, read and catch on Facebook and on like your news program and things like that, and I think we're moving toward there, is a greater cohesion amongst the ruling aspects of the infrastructure of the community. I understand, it's easy to go, like I heard so many times, why is the road taking so long? You got all that money in the American project. Don't those people only care about their business? Why wouldn't they just all get together and lay the thing? Everybody has their own lives that has multiple things going on. And it's that cohesion, that like fusion of even in an internal government is hard to get to. I would just like to see that. But once again, I'm not ready to like make an active contribution to say I'm going to go run for something or I'm going to go put together a board or anything like that. I'll admit that, but it would just be nice to see that more than to see people getting personally snippy at each other over things that, no matter what one person's opinion is, they don't have all the power to make things go one way or another. We're a foreign, in reality, this area, this project, Nosara, this tourist destination is a microcosm of the rest of the country of Costa Rica. But first and foremost is Guanacaste, which in and of itself, this peninsula is, considered a separatist canton from the rest of the country to a great degree. And so it's like, it's multiple political and social layers to deal with. But, I just, let's just all recognize we all want things to get better and let's stop attacking each other on Facebook. Although I have to admit, it's quite amusing to listen to the rants. It's quite amusing.
All right. What are your top 3 favorite restaurants in no particular order, and what do you like to get there?
Okay. See, with a question like this, you can make or break enemies.
You got to just let it fly, and that's why I said no particular order.
No, I'm kidding. No, I'd have to say, I'd have my favorite restaurants. Well, definitely my absolute favorite, which kind of incorporates 3 restaurants, is Gabby's. Because the fact that I can go to Gabby's with my family, have my child be entertained in the playground, be totally welcome and open and happy, and get and get a beautiful New York strip and a nice glass of wine, some fried provolone from La Brazos, while the rest of the family gets whatever they want from, you know, what are the sushi place over there? Sushi Mars, great, and the other one is the High Tide Guiones, I guess. Is that the Tico place there? That's ideal.
So the Argentinian restaurant's your number 1.
Oh, definitely. I mean, right. You can't. I don't know.
Okay, and what's number 2?
No, number 2, I would have to say, I know it sounds ridiculous, but the fish tacos at OLGA'S are one of my very favorites. Nice. And then, and I live real close to there, and it's just, yeah, you can say whatever you want, but I really like the woman who's there. I haven't spoken to her that much. We've run into each other a couple times. She's a very nice lady, the new lady who's running that restaurant. The food there is really good. And it's a true fusion of like the local ticos to as opposed to the very commercialized gringo, the very commercialized kind of foreigner aspect of these restaurants. And then my third favorite restaurant. Who would ever think that this would be the most difficult question to answer? My third favorite restaurant is, I'll have to go with La Terrazas behind the bank. I mean, once again, I can take my kids there. There's a playground. They have an excellent buffet. It's very Tico, but it's quality. It's quality food. And I get my shrimp and I get my Pilsen, and I'm good.
Right on.
Not that I'm condoning the consumption of alcohol by any means.
I don't think anyone's going to come after you for that, man. No, I changed my mind. It's going to be on Facebook tomorrow. Children's author, Mr. Kind, advocates the use of alcohol on the Rich Burnam podcast, the Nosara podcast.
Yeah, right. Dude.
Get ready.
Exactly. When Photoshop me actually holding a bottle during the drink.
Oh, dude, you're screwed.
So I'm scared to get it watered this whole time. I haven't been getting
the Nosara podcast is taking you down, man. So, no, man, dude, seriously, all good. All right, so let me ask you this. Who in Nosara would you like to get to know a little more? As in, if you had a cup of coffee or a meal, like one person in the whole place, you can know them or not know them, either one, but who would you like to get to know a little bit more, just to be able to ask them questions and see where they're coming from?
I think from like a celebrity standpoint, I would be almost forced to say something like, oh, well, like John Johnson, or, I know Susan Sarandon has some property here. But in reality, because I've met him and I've met his son, and on a limited basis, but like at the tennis courts and everything, I would find it very interesting to talk to Terry Von Wilder for I mean, we've already had like short, minute, 2 minute, 3 minute in passing at the tennis courts and stuff, formalities, niceties. But it would just be interesting to see what he has to say in regards to the history of the place. And
so Terry.
Yes,
right
Terry. Yeah. Did I pronounce it incorrect?
I'm sure you did, but I did too. I'm sure. Don't worry. I say everyone's name wrong. Yeah, and everyone says my name wrong too.
Right. Well, no, and it's Rick, right? No, Rich, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'll 9 out of 10 of my Tico friends, I'll say Rick. They don't say Rich.
Whatever. My father's name is Cliff, but whenever he's here, he insists everyone refer to him as Juan Diego. Because the name Cliff just does not roll off the Latin tongue all too well.
I enjoyed hearing that. I thought it was going to be some yoga name.
No, he's very well. See, what it is his older brother, which he might not like me telling the story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. His older brother has a place in Puerto Rico, and he is from that part of my family lives up in the Northeast in like the Delaware area, but he has a place in Puerto Rico, a small rental place because he's a surfer too. They grew up surfing in the Bethany Inlet. You know, this is my lineage is surfers.
It's a pretty place.
Yeah. So, that's where I spent summers growing up. But, so anyway, his older brother had a place in Puerto Rico, and his name is Jeff. Once again, doesn't roll off the Latin tongue all too smoothly. So for the longest time and growing up, he was referred to as Don Pepe. And whenever we would go on surf contests, on surf trips, my father's been bringing me to Costa since I was 12 years old. Okay. On surf trips, just for like a week or two every year or two type thing, you know, maybe we've had a couple 1 month trips here and there, but surf trips with the pop type thing. And, my uncle would come along at times, and it was always Don Pepe as soon as we entered into the country, and that was his name. And so my father has since developed, because now he's spending more time here, of course, because my family's here. They're split between here and Florida, where my sister is. Because of that, he now refers to himself as Juan Diego. He's always fast to give credit to the man who he adopted the name from, and referred to himself as Juan Diego Segundo.
And they're straight.
Exactly. But
they're good.
But Juan Diego it rolls off the Latin tongue.
Well, shout out to Mr. Clifford / Juan Diego Segundo.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, you'd be happy to hear that.
Yeah, no worries. Many props. All right. So while you have this platform, is there any messages or thoughts or ideas, anything you want to get out there for the world to hear?
Yeah, I was asked a similar question, like I said on the last interview with Sherry, but it was more specific toward authors and writers. But she did say at one point, "What is the one?" Which is what you're asking. What is the one piece of advice I have for anyone? Find something that you love to do, something you truly have a passion for, and do it. Because I think I was saying this earlier. It's the practicalities of life, of taking care of yourself, of taking care of your loved ones, of being a healthy, happy, positively contributing member to society in a world you want to see getting better. Those are the pieces, and those are the parts and essence of what gives us peace in ourselves and what gives us peace as a community. But it's your imagination. It's your own unique desires and passions that are the spark that keep your engine running. So find something you love to do and do it. Find a way to do it. And if you're lucky enough to have that be also your practical gaining aspects of, that's awesome. But regardless, you have to have that. You have to have that thing that you're passionate for. Find that and follow it. That's what I would have to say.
Right on, man. Do aliens exist? I think we're good for now.
Okay.
We'll have you back for some more alien talk some other time.
Okay, sounds good.
No worries. Is Trump going to get reelected in the States this year?
Shoot. I can't believe you brought up the Trump question.
You can say yes or no.
No, I really don't know. I mean, I hear so much from both sides, and they're both arguments seem to be very compelling.
I don't care about them. I'm asking your opinion.
Yeah.
I also didn't ask, do you like him or not? I said, is he going to get reelected?
Is he going to get reelected? No, I understand the focus of the question. Is he going to get reelected? I can't. I can't say. I will guess, and I will say that because he got reelected the first time without having a popular vote, I'm under the impression that he will, by following the same course, obviously he's going to evolve his strategy, his campaign strategy and whatever in the second go round. But I think if he uses the monies that I understand he has, and he does it strategically, just like running a business, since there's a way to win the election without winning the popular vote, I think that, there's quite a grand possibility that he may, if not impeach, win the second election.
Are there any people that you'd like to thank, or any particular shout outs?
Any particular shout outs? Well, I have to say love you to my wife, Andrea Vega Martinez, and my beautiful little boy, Misael. And thank you to everybody, Miss Christy, Luis Carlos, Christina Casa del Mar, Patrick, Zach, all the people, my family, my parents, all the people who have been there and supported me and have, and who still love me. Those are the people I have to shout out to.
Oh, that's a great way to wrap it up, man. Excellent. Right. Hey, it was great to have you on. Much success. And I look forward to hearing about books 3 and 4 coming out. And then if I can, let me just throw out there, please visit MrKindStories.com. That's MRKIND stories.com. Or you can visit my publishing company website, which is youthwide.com. And please take a look at what we have available. Please like us, follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on all of that. And if you do have an opportunity to look at one of the books, please review it on Amazon. I would very much appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
All right. You have a great day.